method also. So, as a result here, we construct, that is where again, take the information from our literature, from our context, and the construction of tools, do it that way. Like as we did yesterday, we spoke about spirituality. Spirituality is culture specific. What is spiritual in Indian culture may be very different from the American culture. So it is culture specific. Only then whatever you talk about spirituality will be relevant for me. Even what we could have done yesterday was you could have had Dr. Suresh's session first and then later on me. Because before me explaining what spirituality is, we could have taken the opinion from you as to what you mean by spirituality. That would have given more, because as I had explained already, that have gone into your mind and some of the information you would have given based on that. But whatever it is, the thing is, we are from our own culture, we have our own views. From that, what we did was we tried to identify the views, then from that we shortlisted the attributes, and from that, well, we developed. And we need to find out the dimensions of spirituality, then attributes of each dimension, and then write items for that, and from that we need to go. So that way, again, the construction, as I told you, when I went to the yoga university, they had only the Western psychological tools. They are not appropriate because there are classifications of personality in our own literature. There are classification of characteristics in our own literature. There are classifications of mental illness in our own literature. So we need not go into the American system or the Western system. Go into that and bring the information out and write it in such a way that you give it a particular shape here as per our goal. So that way we need to develop tools accordingly. And I say again, tests are culture specific. There is a questionnaire called Eysenck Personality Inventory, where one of the aspects that score it measures is what he called as the lie score. Higher the lie score, what it indicates is that, well, without understanding what the particular question tells you, you have given the answer. Or you try to answer it in such a way that you are a desirable person rather than what is there in you. And so the lie score will be high. If the lie score is high, that means the data that you have collected is not appropriate. So it does not really show your actual characteristic. And when we administered it in our class, for 95% of the students, the lie score was very high. And lie score, please understand, lie score doesn't mean the individual deliberately lies. That is not the case at all. And we try to analyze. When we analyzed, what happened was many of the items made use of slangs. And the exact meaning of slangs we do not know, because only you belong to the local, if that is your mother tongue, only then you will know the exact meaning. So what happens here is, well, we try to understand it from a literary side, well, as to what we know, accordingly we answer, and the whole data is false. So that way, it should be culture specific also, and it is in that sense, tools are to be developed. And that is another challenge. Development of theory is one challenge. And for example, if you are going to be the supervisor, for candidate one, for instance, you are giving him development of a theory or a model. Well, you have evolved a model now. You have given a framework for future researchers. Then the next thing, since you have worked with him already, you know the inner aspects of the whole theory. Then the next step could be for another research scholar or a research scholar in future, based on this model, either you develop an intervention or you develop a tool, etc., you will be able to take it to the end state in the long run. So that way, development of tools is another challenge that you have, and I would say it is a very tremendous task that we need to perform. And this can happen only if you learn along with your scholar. It is not that your role comes only with regard to methodology. That is what is happening in the academic side now. Because I may not be really an expert in the field, because especially with regard to social sciences and arts faculty, there's no such thing called specialization in the Indian context. In science and technology, yes, but as far as arts and social sciences, a specialization as far as the Indian context is not possible even now. So ultimately what happens here is they probably as a supervisor, you would have focused only on the methodology. The rest, probably the candidate actually read and he got the review and all those things. But that may be possible there because you have the basics there. But here, with regard to this, as I said, it's an evolving area. So you need to learn along with the candidate. Only then in the long run, you will be able to provide in-depth knowledge to the future researchers also. So that way, that is why I say, well, it is an enormous task. The third one, training methods or interventions. Now, when I said tools, what it implies is gathering the required information, whether the tendency of this person with regard to gratitude is high or low. When it is high, well, I don't need any intervention. When it is low, then what exercise can develop the characteristic in this individual? So that way, bring in a training. And training, keep in mind, has to promote or develop the skill in the individual. There is a difference between, as you all know, because you're all learned professors, as you know, there is a difference between knowledge and skill. Knowledge is having only information. Skill is when you are able to use this information in dealing with day-to-day life situations wherever it is required. That is what is called a skill. For example, when we switch on the TV in the morning, especially for women, switch on the TV, there is a chef from a 5-star hotel who comes and says, well, today we are going to see how to prepare a particular dish. As of now, you have no idea as to what are required to prepare the dish and how it has to be done, etc. So you have no knowledge at all. Then what happens? You take a paper and a pen, sit in front of the TV, note down. Well, half a glass of this, 2 teaspoonful of this, half a spoonful of this. You have noted down. So he has demonstrated. Now you have been given an exposure. Now you have got the information. Well, what are the ingredients required, how much it is required, etc. You have got the information. Then you try to cook. So what happens here? You take the paper, half a glass of this, well, keep the glass ready, keep the spoon ready, and then measure that. You put it and boil it for 10 minutes. Exactly. Look at the watch, exactly 10 minutes. Everything is scientific. But by the time you come, but that need not discourage you because you have gained some knowledge, but you have not gained the skill. Skill comes as you practice it, as you identify inadequacies in what you are doing, and then setting a priority, rectifying it from time to time. Like when you keep the glass, the spoon, everything, when you measure that, your mother or a grandmother who comes there, who is an expert in cooking, well, laughs at you. Well, keeping the glass and the spoon. You say, well, I'm scientific in my approach. You are not scientific. But your scientific cooking does not give me the taste, whereas the layperson's cooking is 1,000 times better than your scientific cooking. So the person throws the glass, the spoon away, and then puts the with the bare hand, and it turns out to be good. Then where are you at fault? I did it. I've made it, but the output is not good. But there is an improvement. You have made it. Then now, what should I correct now? Again, important thing, because spirituality is holistic. Don't aim for a whole spiritual development in an individual. That is quite not possible. Step by step. So set a priority. First one, which should I rectify? Well, I've added more salt. Next time, I should reduce the quantity of salt. But next time, it may become less. Then I need to increase more. So ultimately, that what happens when you do it again and again. When you do it again and again, don't do it once in a blue moon. Frequently as possible. Only then the skill can be developed faster. So that way, applying the knowledge in real life, this is again lacking as far as spiritual science is concerned. You have been talking about its desirability, like how spirituality, how religion is good. We talk a lot about it. But specific practices, which in turn should lead to the characteristic, we do not know. There is no explanation at all. Say, for example, fasting. And it is said that fasting should strengthen you psychologically. Why is that? None of us do not know. So what happens here is, well, especially in religious practices, the idea is that, well, if you are devoted to God, you keep on thinking about God, you should not get an idea about your hunger at all. You are so devoted. But it can occur only when your devotion is so high, not at the beginning itself. Because at the beginning, what will happen is, well, today I'm going to fast. Then you keep on looking at the watch every 15 minutes. And another 6 hours and 5 hours and 30 minutes, 5 hours, 4 hours. You look at only the watch, you don't think of God at all. And that doesn't happen. But what should happen here is, well, you have been taught to fast, but you have not been explained as to why you need to do that and what change it has to bring in you. And why do we say that? Well, psychologically, it should make you stronger. The idea is that, at least it's my interpretation, the idea is that food is the basic need that you require for your survival. Many other things you can compromise, but without food, you cannot go on for quite a long time, maybe for a shorter time. But even when you are able to compromise and when you are able to bear with that, then you will be able to tolerate any type of thing in your real life situation. That is the idea. Food is something that which can make my survival at stake. But even that, I know how far I can go, how I should go, and how it develops tolerance, etc. That should promote spirituality in you. Like when I have little food, somebody is starving, well, I can wait. I will try to help this individual out of his hunger. Then that promotes spirituality in you. So that way, those practices, and as I said, when you don't drink for 45 days, why don't you stop it for the rest of your life? You know that it's going to be beneficial. Why don't you do that? So these aspects, that is where the interventions or practices focus on the dynamics. Try to explain how it works. And then try to connect it with the end result, the spiritual development. So that is required. And that is where I say again, strategies or interventions are to be evolved. If it has to be love, then how can I promote love? You must try to, like, if you have a child or if you are a teacher or dealing with children, etc., how am I to promote love? Provide opportunity at every single possible moment here. When the child has something, say for example a candy, and when the neighbor's child comes, some parents say, well, keep it away, you can eat later on. You think that you are helping your child to have this candy for himself, but you don't realize that you are feeding him with selfishness. So indirectly, you make him see, well, whatever is important for me, I should not share. I should keep it away. And then when the person goes, I should have it only with people who are closer to me. And right now, it may be the father, the mother, and the child. As a result, the child shares with the parents are happy. But when the person gets married later on, when something important comes, keeps the parents away, closes the door and chats it with the life partner. Then the parents say that, well, the life partner has spoiled him or her. The life partner has not spoiled him or her. You laid the foundation long back. We don't look at it that way at all. So that is where, in the interest of the child, make him share. The child will not share because the child will be selfish. I won't give. I have only one candy. I won't give. Tell him, share it. I will get you another candy later on. Share it with him. So anything. So that way, as you integrate it in the day-to-day life situation, then that develops into a characteristic. Then there would be practices in our culture, in our literature, which would say that if you practice this, it will bring in this type of a change in the individual, which will promote spiritual development. This type of an attribute which is required for spiritual development, etc. Evolve training programs or interventions based on that. Test them. Again, for one, you have given a topic on the model. For the other one, you have developed a tool now for measurement. For the third one, well, you measure that, and whoever has low in that, well, what is the training program that I can give? Try to provide that and see whether the training program really works or whether it has to be modified, it has to be refined, etc. So that way, interventions, the practices. And it is these practices you are going to tell the society that, well, if you practice it right from the younger years, well, it will promote spiritual development, it will enhance the quality of life of the individual, etc. So that is another tremendous task that we have. Then the next one is impact of your result or on the outcome. So you need to ultimately connect and show that the result is like this, the outcome is like this, etc. Only then the society, people will be convinced. I've seen some people, they come and say, sir, is yoga useful? I've been doing it for the past 1 month. I want to ask you, is yoga useful? They would ask me. I tell them, well, only you should tell me. You have been practicing, you say you have been practicing yoga for the past 1 month or 2 months or 3 months. But they say, well, I do not know, sir. Because you do not know how yoga works. The inner dynamics people don't understand. Only thing the teachers say that, well, you practice it this way, you practice it that way, etc. Ultimately, the same way meditation. People say I meditate every day, but that has not changed their quality of life for 90% of the people, I would say. I would challenge. The reason is meditation does not bring the end result. Meditation is only a strategy that you develop, which you have to apply in different life situations. Meditation helps you to avoid all the distracting elements and focus on the right element. Not only that, go deep into it so that you get in-depth information at the right angle. But that is not the case. So ultimately what happens here, you meditate for 1 hour, for 10 minutes, 1 hour or half an hour, whatever it is. Again, meditation, I would say, maybe you would be able to tell me better than me. Meditation is not an easy thing which will not come in a short period of time. Because when I started, when I was with our yoga center, they said meditation, in meditation, you need not just focus on only one mantra. It can be anything. It can be your pen, it can be your pencil, it can be your chair, it can be your computer, etc. The thing is, you must be able to concentrate on that. Then when I close my eyes and when I try to concentrate, except my pen, everything else comes into my mind. So meditation is not so easy again. Then, only then, I become aware of the fact that I'm unable to concentrate. Earlier, we think that I'm able to concentrate. How do you say that? Well, I read the book, I write the examination. In my examination, I've got a first class distinction. As a result, I concentrate. But that is not concentration. So concentration is keeping your mind still on a particular aspect. And that will not come overnight. That again will come over a very long period of time. And now, when you are able to do that, what you do here is you have become a master of your mind. You are able to keep your mind under your control. Otherwise, you are under the control of the mind. In a materialistic culture, you are under the control of you are a slave to your mind. That is why all the suffering comes. That is where I say, in the present day life situations, spirituality is the ultimate solution. So that way, when I'm able to concentrate, then this skill I should apply to different life situations. For example, there is a quarrel between me and my life partner on a particular day. What happens? Well, she is frustrated, she shouts at me. Then I look at her words, I shout at her. It goes on and on. On the other hand, I should be able to use the skill right now. Why is she shouting? What is the reason behind it? And what is it that I could have done here? Or what is it that, how can I handle it in such a way that it can be done in a more positive way? Because what happens here is, in what way am I inferior? I make my shouting louder than hers. Then she makes it louder. Ultimately, it leads to a breakdown of the relationship. So that way, you must be able to focus. Like when there is a life problem, you must be able to focus on that. The same way, for example, if you are a teacher, if you 90% of your students do well in the studies, when 10% are not doing that, your focus should be on the 10 rather than the 90. Because many times I have seen teachers saying that, well, in my subject, 98% result. What they imply is that, well, I am responsible for this 95. I take the credit. If you can take the credit for 95 or 98, you are responsible for the 2 also. But the teacher says, well, they are dark-headed fellows. Then these are bright fellows. Then where does your role come in? And that is where you are, and this 2% again shows that still there is inadequacy in my teaching skill. How can I develop that? That should be your attitude rather than taking the credit and leaving these people like that. You are responsible for all the 100. Then how can I improve further? Because if it is there, still there is inadequacy in me. The concept of perfection itself is relative in nature. Perfection doesn't mean a flawless condition. That is quite not possible. That itself is relative. So when that is the case, when you are able to meditate in the real sense, to use this script in your various life situations, and as a result, your quality of life has to be enhanced. So that is what it is. So it is in that sense, what are all the practices? Why are they done? What is the dynamics? How does it work within? And how does it lead to a particular outcome, etc.? Try to explain. There are umpteen number of religious practices, but most of us do not know it has to be done. We blindly do that. And when a person has some problem, say for example, the life partner has died or he has lost all his wealth, etc., immediately he says, well, I attend Gita classes. Attending Gita class is not going to alter your situation at all. Attend that, gain some knowledge, try to apply it to your condition. That is what is required. For example, one of the psychological disorders that seem to be common, or problem that seem to be common, is depression. Now, why is it when a person actually suffers from depression, and the depression actually gets strengthened in the individual? Why? Because the same problem, when the problem occurs immediately, at the spur of the moment, everyone may understand depression, but one is able to overcome, another one is not able to. Then he takes to alcohol, drugs, etc. What is the reason? Well, the first person, when he sees that, well, yes, I have lost my job, then I feel depressed because right now there is a block in my life. But immediately, from the looking at the problem, he starts focusing on alternatives to overcome the problem. Now, what can I do? At least for the time being, I can take up an immediately available job, and later on I can look for a better job. As a result, my problem can be solved. Whereas this person keeps on thinking only about the problem, not about the solution to the problem. So as a result, day by day, the problems seem to grow. And when the problem grows, your cognition gets more and more narrowed down. That is why any psychological, say for example, stress, when the stress is too high, your cognition becomes very narrow, and ultimately you are unable to do that. See the right solutions. So as a result, what needs to be done is apply these strategies. So spiritual aspects or religious aspects provide you the practices, develop the skill and application. So far, again, this area is another area that is lacking in spiritual sciences so far. They tell you, well, when you do meditation, well, you do it like this, and you sit erect, you close your eyes, you do this, you do that, etc. Once you open your eyes, you are back to your original life situation. So you need to understand that this practice develops a skill in you, and once you develop the skill, you use it in day-to-day life situations. Once you do that, well, your problem can be eliminated, your quality of life can be improved, etc. So that way, application is another. It is again highly lacking. It is what is required now. For example, when I say in a materialistic culture, there are variety in everything. And when there are variety in everything, you are tempted more and more every time. When you step out of your, not necessarily you have to step out of your house. Even when you switch on the TV or switch on your mobile phone, there are umpteen number of things that tempt you more and more. And that cannot be changed overnight. So if your problem has to be solved by changing outside, your lifetime would be over. Then immediately what is required is you need to change your, because you are the one who is suffering, you are the one who wants things to improve, which means you need to change. Then develop self-control or inner control. And rather than calling it inner control, I would call it inner strength. So focus on your needs and keep your life only with regard to your needs, eliminate the conveniences, comforts, etc. And like when you have a mobile phone, you see that having your mobile phone in your hand is a nuisance. Okay, keep it away. But again, you are restless. You keep your mobile phone at home or keep it at the end, and then you sit here. Again, you are restless. Why is that? You do not know what you want. Think about it. Then see how it needs to be handled. Mobile addiction is a problem now. Drug addiction is a problem now. Alcohol addiction is a problem now. So all these things can be helped by developing inner strength. Well, I will try to see the long-term consequences. As a result, I will control my temptation. And when you are able to control and focus only on your needs, you are at peace with your. Talking about two attributes among the many. One is peace, the other one is freedom. When you say peace, what it implies is not peace with another person. That's a secondary aspect. The primary is at peace with yourself. There is no disturbance, there is nothing that is agitating in me, there is nothing that is bothering in me. So I am content with what I have. That is, when you say freedom, again, doesn't mean legal freedom or a social freedom, it means a psychological freedom. There are no inner inhibitions here in you. For instance, when women's empowerment people started talking about, then one of the solutions suggested was education and employment. Because the interpretation was, if women are given better education, then they can be employed. If they are employed, they become economically independent. When they become economically independent, they are not subservient to the husband. As a result, they can be independent. That society has given to that. But how many women really enjoy the psychological freedom? Well, they work, take the salary, and give it to the mother-in-law or the husband, again begging for their own money. And where is the question of freedom here? There may be some who may be enjoying freedom, but there are many who don't. The reason is that not that it is there outside, it is inside. You have been taught that way. When even now, when a lady gets married, is about to leave her parents' place, what do the parents say? Well, whatever be the problem there, you adjust. Because if you quarrel and come back, that will affect your sister getting married, your brother getting married, etc. So even if the life there is a hell, the lady puts up with that. Why? Psychological inhibition. My parents have told, and if I go back, my family will suffer, so I will undergo all the suffering. So that way, inner freedom is required, and with spiritual development, we should be able to do that. So that way, we need to see its application. So, and when you talk about application, it can be seen in two broad angles. One is promoting positive characteristics further. It need not ultimately lead to a problem. There are umpteen number of positive characteristics in us. That is again the belief of the spiritual sciences. Each person is born with multitudes of potentials. We don't realize all of them. So you are born with only positive characteristics, multitude of potentials. And when you are born with multitudes of potentials, on the one side, there may be some which is really good, but there may be some where you may be inadequate. So when you are inadequate, try to set a priority there, whichever is more important right now. Try to develop those characteristics also. Promote positive characteristics. So for further development, enhancement, well, spiritual practices should help. The other side would be when suffering occurs, like for example, marital problems, and the same way life failure, examination failure, or whatever. So any problem, well, how can I overcome? By adopting these principles here. So that way, application is another important. This is highly lacking, and I think during the course of our research guidance, we need to think in these angles and try to make a contribution. And we need to start right from the beginning. This responsibility. At the same time, you would not only be making a contribution to spiritual science, but you will be making a contribution to the humanity. So that way, I've given you a broader outline as to what needs to be done. Okay, thank you. If there's any question, I'm willing to answer. See, philosophy tries to integrate many things.